The track and field season at Eastern is well underway, and joining me here now to discuss everything and how the season has been to this point on this week's edition of Coach's Corner is the head coach of the Eastern men's and women's track team, Kathy Manizza. Coach, appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So I was thinking when I was prepping for this interview, I've interviewed softball, baseball, men's and women's lacrosse coaches, and track impressed me as a different kind of sport when you have individuals coming together to put points together for a team, and that's how meets are decided. Can you talk about some of the challenges of having a track season in the middle of this of this pandemic, and also maybe some of the uniqueness where kids can practice on their own versus having to get the whole team together? So maybe that aspect of it too.
Sure. I know it's funny because everybody thinks that track's kind of different, but to us, of course, it seems totally normal. The first time you go to a track meet, it might feel like you're at a three-ring circus because there's so many things going on at once. We usually have about 4 or 5 events going on at a time, with a couple of throwing events, a couple of jumping events, and something, on the track itself. But to us, that's what makes it exciting, is there's always something to watch, and it also is a sport that all different kinds of people can participate in, throwing events versus sprinting events versus distance events. Like you said, we have been able to keep our practices a little bit smaller groups this year. It's kind of ironic because it's something that I've been working the last several years to get away from, to try to get everybody to feel more like they were part of one team as opposed to individualized. But from a safety point of view, it's been great for us to divide it up. And I tend to work with the mid-distance and the distance runners, which would be anything from the 800 or half mile up to the 10K or 6 miles. One of my assistants, Coach DeMarco, works with the jumpers, high jump, long jump, triple jump, and the short sprinters, which would be the 100-meter dash, 200-meter dash. We don't have any pole vaulters this year. I have a great volunteer pole vault coach, and I've got to get some kids for him next year because he's itching to get going again. And then my other assistant coach, Andre Reynolds, is actually an alumni that I coached 5 or 6 years ago. He still holds the school record in the 110 hurdles. So he works with the hurdlers and the throwers this year. So we can keep everybody in smaller groups, but it also works well for us because Andre doesn't get here till later in the afternoon. So if somebody can't make it to our normal practice time, they can come later and do a workout with him. We just try to all help each other. It's a great staff this year that gets along really well. And we just help each other wherever we can to give the athletes the best coaching we can.
You mentioned it, they're trying to focus the last few years on making it more of a team sport rather than individual. How great was it to finally get the team back together down at the track for the spring outdoor season?
Well, like everybody said, I mean, we're all just so excited to get out. I got to be honest, into January, early February, it was really cold down there. But we've been lucky because we had cross country in the fall, and it was virtual championships, but both the men and women won the LEC virtual, which that means that all the schools competed on their home course, and then we compiled the times. And when I talked to the kids about that, like, why did we have a more successful season than maybe some of the other schools, is we haven't changed anything. We still trained hard all summer. You mentioned the historical aspect of COVID. I kept saying to them all fall, this may be the only virtual championships we ever have. Let's make it the best one. And we really used our practice time as an opportunity to get out of the dorms, to do something outside, and stayed positive, and the kids ran great. We were also lucky in that we got to go to a couple of indoor meets, which most schools in New England did not. But we went down the road to the Coast Guard and had 2 meets with them. We were hoping to have a third with, University of Southern Maine, but that was canceled because they had a few COVID cases at the time. So our first outdoor meet was a week ago, and that was great. That was great to have a home meet and to be down there. And unfortunately, no fans yet, but we sold the fatheads or the pictures, whatever you want to call it, to have around the track, and that's been a lot of fun. So yeah, we're excited to be back out there.
I want to ask you about that first meet that you had at home last week. Since both the men's and women's teams have returned to competition, you've won numerous weekly conference awards. And we look at the New England rankings from last week. The women's team ranked #1 in New England, with the men's ranked #2. Talk about the success of both teams to this point and what has stood out to you most so far this season.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to us in a way because it's the smallest team we've had since I've been back in 2012. But I think that the kids that have stuck it out and that they really want to be here and they really want to do their best. So in some ways, it's made it easier for us as coaches because we have all really motivated kids that want to take on the challenge, want to work hard, and want to do well. We brought in a great group of freshmen, men particularly last year, and jumpers particularly, which is awesome because we had lost two very good jumpers, and now we've got some guys that probably will even break their records in their 4 years here. We've also got a group of good throwers this year, which is a place that we were missing a lot of points in the past. So having that group that can work together and push each other is really helpful. Our distance has always been strong. We have one of the best sprinters in the nation. He was an All-American last indoor season. He has decided to take this semester off because he's from Ghana, but he'll be back next year, so we're really excited about that as well. So yeah, we were excited to win our first couple of meets and to have all the individuals that get Rookie of the Meet or Outstanding Field or Outstanding Track Athlete.
Last question for you, Coach. You talked about those virtual meets that you guys competed in earlier on this year. And so we're always talking about that uphill battle of being able to compete in the winter. We saw that within the conference teams opting out, and even in the spring, we're seeing it across the country. Teams are able to play. You talked about the virtual meets. Is there anything positive, anything new that came out of this pandemic, kind of looking at it from a glass half full? I didn't think a year and a half ago I'd be doing interviews with coaches in my dorm room like this. So anything kind of looking at it from that glass half full perspective?
Oh, absolutely. I think there have been some things that we're going to take away from this and looking back, say it helped make us stronger. The first thing that pops into my mind with that is we're never going to take any opportunity for granted. And I think that in the past, where we have maybe 12 or 13 track meets in a season, if you're not really feeling it one week, you say, "Oh, I'll go harder next week," and that next week never comes. And I don't think anybody's doing that now because we truly know next week might not come. I mean, between poor weather or the quarantining or COVID cases on another team, you can't take it for granted that you're going to get another opportunity to be out there. Another thing that's been really positive for us, and this kind of goes back to your earlier question about individual training versus team training. And I just feel that being a member of a team is something that's super special that you don't get after college, or not too much. And the bonding and the teammates and the friends that you make, the connections for later in life, the commitment to something that's greater than just yourself, are very, very important values that, again, we don't want to take for granted. We want to think about what we can do to best represent ourselves, but also the university, the athletic department, the sport of track and field, which we all love. And this year, we've ended up putting on a lot more home meets than we have in the past because everyone's got 2 or 3 schools. Usually we go to meets with 10 or 20 schools. So it takes a lot to put on a meet. It takes 15 or to 20 officials. And that could be really expensive if you're paying everybody to come and officiate. But what's been really, really awesome for us is that our alumni have stepped up, and I give them a hat and they come for free. So it's cost us basically a $10 hat, and we've had great officials. Plus, it's just been really fun to see everybody, to continue that bond. I mean, one of the alums that was the starter at our last meet, I coached him here in 1998. And he's now an athletic director at another high school. But it's just, it's so great to see their loyalty to the program and to the sport, and it's just been really fun to get back together.
I think it's what it does. You mentioned puts everything into perspective, and if you need anybody, I'd love one of those hats. So if you need anybody to come down, I'll come down and work to get one of those hats. But Coach Kathy Manizza, appreciate you taking the time today, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks so much.
The track and field team will be in action at Coast Guard this weekend, but you can see them next at home next Thursday as they have the second Eastern Invitational. You can see that streaming live on littleeast.tv/EasternCT.